This is a CNC Geekcast, the podcast where two guys with speech impediments talk about movies. I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
On today's episode, we'll be talking about our very first horror movie for the month of October, 28 days later. We're going to be talking about the plot, the characters, the theme of this movie, and why this movie has now become one of my favorite horror movies, even though I'm not a big fan of the genre in general. So stay tuned!
28 Days Later is kind of famous for popularizing the fast zombie concept.
Which definitely is not a big idea with the zombie purists.
Yeah, a lot of people are still bothered by that. They're like, fast zombies couldn't exist and things like that. And I'm like, well, neither could zombies. And it's a whole thing.
It's a geek thing, but still.
Yeah. In 28 Days Later, it's interesting, though, because zombies are traditionally reanimated corpses. Whereas in 28 Days Later, these are infected people. They've been infected with a virus simply called rage, because it turns off most of your brain and just makes it where you're nothing but a big ball of
rage.
White-hot anger.
Yes. Actually funny, because in the beginning of this film, we start with a laboratory that has monkeys that are infested with this rage, and three people, animal rights activists, broke in to free these animals, and they released this disease amongst England.
Yeah, I find it interesting because it always makes me think of that phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
This movie kind of is a direct representation of that.
It is, and I knew the words were going to come to an end by the hands of Peter.
Of course, I believe it.
But after that, it leads into one of the best opening scenes, and that it's to a horror movie, and that is the scene with London.
I'm just not going to say it's one of the best opening scenes to a horror movie. I love this opening scene. Seeing Cillian Murphy run around London.
Or just walking around.
Oh, yeah, walking around London and seeing all these sites that we've all seen in media completely abandoned. It's eerie. And then you have the score, which fits it perfectly, that builds and just keeps building, and it's fantastic.
And another thing I love about the opening sequence is the fact that his reaction and his character is the audience reaction too.
It's perfect. He works very well as an audience surrogate. Because at that point, after the opening scene with the monkey and the lab, the screen just cuts to black and says 28 days later. I mean, we know the movie will get and we know the outbreak of it, but then it immediately has that change where it's
the mystery.
Yeah, the mystery aspect of it.
Yeah, and we audiences, we don't know what's going on, neither does he. So we instantly connect to this character, just like in Star Wars with C-3PO and R2-D2. It's like we don't know what's going on, and these characters are the only ones that do, and it was a great way to open that movie too. So
you always have to work in Star Wars somehow.
It's the CNC Geekcast, man. It wouldn't be much of a geek show if I didn't talk about Star Wars.
And I also like how the first place he goes is to the church.
Well, he saw a church, and that reminds me of a scene that was really creepy, because he sees all these dead corpses, and he says, hey, what's going on? And suddenly two jump up, and suddenly you hear, and he's on like the balcony, and you hear one of them come running up the stairway, and you don't know if it's a human or a zombie, and that was, I have to be honest, that creeped me out. Just the sound of someone rushing.
And it was, and I also like how this movie it creeped you out. It didn't rely on a lot of jump scares, other than one. And this jump scare gets me every single time I watch this movie. You see him walking around London, and he comes up to this abandoned car, and the car alarm goes off, and for some reason I jump every time I watch this movie.
Maybe it's because he had the volume really high.
How are you going to watch a horror movie unless the volume's really high?
This is true. That's a valid point. I
mean, you're not going to go to a movie theater and tell him to turn the volume down.
It's too loud. Please turn it down. It's a movie theater. You get what you pay for.
This movie used tension. It used just the creepiness factor to really build the scares, to really build the suspense. Because later in the movie, there's a scene where they're in the tunnel. And that all the characters are aware it's a bad idea. They did it anyway.
The movie's aware of the bad idea too. And in a lot of horror movies, these characters are doing stupid stuff. And we talked about this, about characters in general doing stupid things. And they're like, you know what? You deserve to die after that.
Yeah, but in the tunnel scene, you see a bunch of rats coming towards them, which is just, rats are just disgusting and kind of creepy anyway. And then they're followed close behind by those running zombies. And they're having to change the flat tire, and you understand the time crunch, and it's tense.
It definitely was tense, because at this point in time, you got so connected to the characters. And that's another strength of this movie, is the characters. And at this point, the characters was really well developed for that moment in the movie. And I knew it being a horror film, oh, some of these characters are going to die. I'm like, uh-oh, someone's going to get caught. Someone's going to get, like, one of these characters won't get back into the car, and they're going to be dragged away. And to my relief, none of them died at that moment. But still, it was tense because you got so connected to the characters. And these characters are really good.
No, all the characters are good. You had Cillian Murphy, who's the audience surrogate, but then he becomes his own character. You see his own characteristics take shape. You have a female lead played by Naomi. She's fantastic. When you first meet her, she's very no-nonsense. She's, I guess you would call her like an alpha survivor. Mm-hmm. She's going to do whatever it takes to survive. Because earlier in the movie, her partner, her traveling companion, whose name is pretty much irrelevant, gets bit in an attack, and she immediately takes him.
It hacks him up because the disease, which is unrealistic, spreads throughout 15 seconds, right? We know that diseases don't do that.
Well, you're saying a zombie virus is unrealistic?
Okay, if it's gonna sit there and use that type of logic on me, we're done, man. The thing takes 15 seconds. And it's not realistic in the sense of, like, what we know about biological science. But at the same time, it does a good job at, again, raising tension because you know the stakes. You know that you don't have that much time, and one drop in the wrong spot with this blood, you're done at that point. And so, yeah, the tension is really high, and this character knows that and does a very good job of saying, look, either, you know, the most viable thing right now is staying alive. And I'm gonna let you know, if something happens to you, the main character, I won't hesitate. And that's the start of her arc, which is really cold, not that merciful, but you have to do that in those circumstances.
Yeah, truthfully, it makes the most sense. Because I will tell you, Joseph, if there's ever a zombie outbreak and some zombies are chasing us, I will trip you.
Wow, Paul, that's heartless. But to be fair, I'll probably outrun you anyway. So.
Well, I don't have to be faster than you. I just have to
survive.
I just have to survive.
Yeah, that's true. But no, at the same time, I did. What about the father's character? This one.
Well, he's played by Brendan Gleeson. He's in a lot of movies. He was Mad Eye Moody in the Harry Potter movies. He was in Braveheart. He was in Bruise. He's always a supporting actor, but he's fantastic. And he was also fantastic in this movie. He had a warmth to him. Like he almost, I hate to say it, but it's almost like he didn't belong in the apocalypse that they were living in.
Yeah, because when we first met him, even though that he had like a SWAT gear on to fight off zombies, which is like one of the best things you can have on during that. They're like, that's smart, dude. That's okay. You got it. But you could see that when they let them in, he was very hospitable. Exactly. And there was one scene I like where he talked to the guy and he's like, are you in the go? We have a spare room and are you together? And he was still a good host. But like you said, it was really warm-hearted. Even though this big bad thing just happened, he still tried to create a solid structure for his daughter. He tried to create something that was a everyday life thing so his daughter wouldn't grow up being afraid every single night and being basically, losing her mind, trying to create that normal day life. And you could read, and that warm-heartedness did show, because I think wasn't at one point one of the main characters who was falling asleep called him Dad?
Yes.
Exactly, and that goes back to the entire family aspect of it.
And that scene is tragic too, because it's immediately after that scene that Frank, played by Brendan Gleeson, dies.
Yes, because they decided to go to I can't pronounce the name. Manchester, because they caught a military channel on one of the radios. And the scene basically happens where he got infected. And I love that scene too, because he knew he was about to die. His daughter comes up behind him and says if he's all right. And he knew he's about to die and says, I love you. And then pushes the daughter back saying, stay away. His last act was to defend his daughter. Yeah. And I really do love that scene. And it's heartbreaking because he got shot by the soldiers. I'm like, if anybody, not him.
Well, because you had said that immediately. We were watching it together. And as soon as the father and daughter is introduced, he's like, one of them's going to die.
Yeah.
But the movie waits until you're connected.
I know. And this is what makes this movie so good. And why so many other horror movies are so bad. Because they do not take the time to establish characters. And this movie, just like that we talked about with Cabin in the Woods, you can have good horror movies. And same thing with action movies. If your characters are good, then the genre is kind of just a backdrop. And no matter what that backdrop is, if the characters are good, you have something going for you.
What do you think of Christopher Eccleston as Major West?
To be honest, I couldn't tell if he was crazy or if he was... I don't want to say crazy, but I can't describe the word I'm looking for. I mean, how would you describe him?
Psychopathic. I
couldn't tell if he was psychopathic or if he was actually in his right mind. I couldn't tell.
I couldn't either, and that's kind of the scariest part of this character too. Was that Major West first appeared kind of like a savior, like he was literally a savior. But then he takes them to this compound, which is well fortified, which is everything, and it's like, wow, this is a nice place. They could survive here. Yeah, and then not long after, his true motives are revealed.
Yes, and we find out that there was one point that's a dinner scene, and it's really goes along with the themes of the movie, which we'll get into later. But suddenly after the dinner scene, they're attacked by zombies. And after the men kill the zombies, they're on this adrenaline high. And one of them walks in, sees one of the women, and start putting his, I don't say moves on her, but start like advancing on her.
Yeah, he doesn't try to put his moves on her because he could not care less what she wants.
Exactly. And so we find out that afterwards, the general says, look, and this goes back to a scene early in the movie about how the main character kills a zombie, like a little boy. Yeah. And that has to do with, at this point in the film, the main character has been rescued multiple times, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's really just new at this, and he's made a lot of mistakes, but at this point he's trying to prove himself. Mm-hmm. And he goes into it, they stop to get some gas, and they get a taxi. Then he goes in and he decides to go in to kill a zombie on purpose to prove that he can do it to himself or for himself. And he kills a young boy, and then the general says that, like, did you kill somebody? He's like, I killed a young boy, which was a powerful statement. And he said, you have to do what you have to do, which makes a point, like, I have to do what I gotta do, and I promise my men and women, because that's how you repopulate the species and make it continue on. And that's the true, true motives.
Yeah, that's definitely his true motives.
Which was really chilling.
It was incredibly chilling just because he states it as fact. Yeah. It isn't something he even feels ashamed to do. He's like, this is what I'm going to do, and if you're in my way, I will kill you. Because he does try to kill the main character. He tries to have him executed.
Oh yeah, and they take the two of the shows escort him and somebody else who was the chaplain of the gang or something.
I don't know.
Or maybe that was his nickname.
Yeah, I think he was the second in command. Yeah, actually,
and he was just nicknamed Chaplain. Yeah, but they both execute him because he wouldn't have that. It was good. He died for standing up for what he believed. But I love the ending scene of this film because at that point the main character escapes. And so at this point, that he's ready to kill people. He's ready to survive.
I also like the ending scene in which he escapes, though. This movie is really smart to me.
It is.
You don't have the characters making a lot of stupid decisions.
Except for that one scene where they drive into the tunnel, but the movie owns that.
The movie does own that, and I'm kind of fine with that. And even then, it's just the one. But once Cillian Murphy escapes his executors, he looks up and he sees a plane, which confirms what one of the other characters has said previously, that what do you do with the island that gets infected? You quarantine it. You cut it off from the rest of the world, and the problem kind of takes care of itself.
Okay, I forgot that scene in the movie. Who said that in the movie?
When Cillian Murphy and the other character are in the holding cell awaiting their execution, the other character is kind of monologuing about it, talking to himself.
Oh, okay. I remember that now, and I was trying to figure out what he was saying. Okay, you quarantine. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, what do you do with an island that gets infected? You quarantine it. And I just think it goes to show how well the writers thought out this film. Yeah. Because everything about this film is masterful. I've seen this movie probably 10 times in my life, and it's held up every viewing because it's smart and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. And another smart decision this character made was to escape. He did hide with the dead bodies, but he decided to go back to the compound. And to draw the people out, he decided to sign the alarm that was at one of the checkpoints. And the climax of the film was really good because when he got back into the film, he was angry. And that goes back to the themes of this film, because the themes were themes of family, and we saw this when they were traveling across the country. There was a scene where they went shopping, and at this point, they were all down. But it was a very important scene to show because it showed that they was lighthearted and they were having fun. And they found the ability to have fun in this moment of tragedy. And then the other theme, of course, was another one talking about they were at the dinner table, and the major said, basically, it's not monster killing man, it's man killing man, which has always been the case. I have always been in that situation.
And the movie kind of establishes that. Because that whole movie is about these infected with rage. Mm-hmm. And what differs them from us is that they can't come back from it. In this movie, Cillian Murphy is so filled with rage, he kills every single person in the compound.
Well, it caused the death of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it set the courses in action because they were keeping a soldier that was enraged.
Yeah.
Themselves, trying to learn from that. And the Murphy guy comes in and basically sets him loose on
Yeah.
everybody. And then he gets into the compound and he starts attacking somebody and starts beating him up against the wall and decides to kill him by stabbing him in the,
Which I always have a hard time watching scenes with eye gouging.
Me too,
I had to I always turn away from that scene.
Yeah, it was hard for me just because of the screaming. And that's one of the things I don't like about horror films. And that goes into the entire aspect of the horror films. I don't like seeing people screaming before they die. And that's the thing I appreciate about Alien is the deaths were quick. Same thing with It. The death, there was only one death, a couple of deaths, and it was really quick. So nothing else was just it wasn't really scary for me. We'll get into that next time if we talk about It. But that's the thing I like about this film is that the death was quick and it didn't focus too much on it. Like when the zombies started attacking people, you heard screaming, but you didn't see any blood and gore, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the scene did come up where he attacked, and the woman actually thought he was enraged, and that was the point of the movie.
And she hesitated. That was the important thing. I do like that she hesitated because it established her arc. Earlier in the movie, she had said, "If I'm infected, what will you do? Kill you immediately." That's what she replies. And then at the end of the movie, she can't. It establishes how anyone can learn family, even someone alpha survivor.
What do you think of the themes?
I definitely agree with you on the theme of family. This movie talked about the search for family even. Like he immediately tries to go to the priest for the church for community. He immediately tries to go to his own family. And then he finds that he gets the family which he yearns to protect. And you have Frank protecting the family, so you kind of see what Cillian Murphy aspires to do.
Yeah, because at one point they went to a abandoned place. It was ruins or something. I don't know exactly what it was. And Frank stayed up all night watching while they sleep. And he woke up Murphy, who was having a bad dream, and he went back to sleep and said, "Thank you, Dad."
Yeah.
And we talked about that, and it's like, no, it does great, and I love the theme. I love the idea because this movie is really smart for a low budget film and horror film about people still being people. It's like because Murphy smashed him up against the wall, and when he was doing that, I get it. I get what you're getting at, movie.
Now, I also like that the movie didn't hold your hand establishing that point, though.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about this on a couple of recent episodes, that we hate when the movie kind of pounds you over the head with the point.
Yeah.
This movie establishes this point and kind of just, okay, there you go.
Yeah, and you can tell at that point, not only by him smashing into it, but before the woman takes a machete at him, Murphy is in the shadows. And then he comes out and you don't see his eyes red.
Well, this movie does have some fantastic filmmaking techniques to establish narrative.
Yeah.
Even the fact that when you see the zombies on screen, the camera's a lot more frantic, and they altered the frame rate to make it appear more frantic. Just all of it works so well. This is such a well-made movie.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's one thing you don't like about this film, and that's the ending, isn't it?
I don't know. It just films without a too happy ending bother me.
Really?
I don't always like a happy ending.
Okay. Now this film apparently had an original ending.
Well, this film, I don't know if it was an original ending or just a different ending that they filmed. And there is another ending of this film where once Cillian Murphy is shot by Major West, you see them drive into a hospital and you see him die on the hospital bed. And you see Naomi and the young girl just walk out of the hospital, and that's the end of the movie.
And the reason why I like that idea is...
Well, the reason I like that idea is it's kind of poetic. The movie started with him on the hospital bed, and it ends with him on the hospital bed. That's poetic in of itself.
No, if you want to go after a poetic ending, it's a good way to do it.
No, but it also made sense. He was shot in the stomach.
No.
She wasn't a doctor. Like, how exactly was he saved?
Well, he wasn't she wasn't a doctor, but wasn't she like a chemist or something?
She was a chemist.
Yeah. So that means that she understands the ideas of drugs and how they, interact with one another, right?
Yeah, but she wouldn't have been able to do surgery to remove the bullet from his stomach.
Well, I mean, it's depending on how, all you gotta do is just, put your hand in there and here's the bullet, put some tools and be like, I got the bullet, and pull it out and then start pounding it. It's that simple, man. And it's all you gotta do.
Yeah, why do doctors go to medical school and all that? And
yeah, exactly. Why spend all this time when you can just, stick your hand in there and just take it out? I mean, it's that simple.
Sometimes the happy ending just feels more unrealistic. It just feels like, oh well, we gotta give it a happy ending.
Yeah, but I feel like it does work for this film because they got done with their own personal hell, and a lot of times I don't like happy endings because Krampus didn't have a happy ending.
Yeah.
And I don't like a lot of horror movies that have this ending that's like, oh, they defeat the monster, but the monster's coming back because we need sequels.
But my thing with the ending, actually, my headcanon is that was a dream while he's dying on the hospital bed. That's what I truly believe as I watch the movies.
Oh, that scene of him being rescued is like, oh, that's what he wanted.
Yeah, that's what they wanted, and thus it didn't happen. Because it was just a little too perfect. Think about it. Mm-hmm. They found this house in the middle of nowhere that was fully stocked on food where they could survive for 28 more days.
Yeah.
It had one of those old-timey sewing machines where they could sew out the letters for say the word help or hello. I truly believe that's his mind dying, and that's a vision.
You just want a sad ending, don't you? You've seen too many episodes of BoJack Horseman.
Shut up.
But this movie has definitely become one of my favorite horror movies because, like I said, the gore is not that grotesque. It's like I remember watching something like Trick or Treat, and there's a scene where the woman blows out a jack-o'-lantern, and the idea is you're not supposed to do that because I hate the idea that a woman dies because of some stupid thing like that. But you could see that Trick or Treater, a monster, put this girl and took Barbara and just killed her, and like you could see this action, and I don't like those type of scenes. Or like the movie Drag Me to Hell. Well, the woman actually is dragged to hell at the end of the movie. I don't like those scenes because it's just too much for me. I just don't like seeing people in horrific situations. Or the movie, what was it, Hostel? And I saw the preview. Well, the guy was pushing a cart and had all these chopped up limbs in it. I'm like, that's too much. That's for me.
So this movie, because it relied more on tension and gore and things like that, and jump scares, you liked it a lot more because of that?
I liked it a lot more because it actually focused on character. It was a smart film. It was an intelligent film. It was a mature film from that regard and standpoint. It wasn't something that was made... It had a small budget, but it wasn't something that was like, okay, we need a horror film, do that. Because like Cabin in the Woods did a perfect job of illustrating, you had those 5 character arcs. You didn't have those 5 character arcs in this movie. You didn't have the virgin. You didn't have, the jock. You didn't have the smart kid. You had 4 characters that, probably these characters, they mask these characteristics, but that's because of coincidence, not because of, arc. So that's something I enjoyed about this film. And the same thing with Alien, too. Or with the movie It, which we can talk about in later episodes. So to me, that it falls under the category of Alien.
Well, I do love horror films, but this is still one of my favorite horror films, though, because it builds tension so well. Mm. Like, the opening scene, it's fantastic, though, because it goes on long enough. Mm. It could have just showed a couple of shots of him going through London and just moved on to the next scene, but it didn't. It let you establish just how alone he was, just how eerie the situation was.
It created atmosphere.
It created atmosphere.
It's like Blade Runner or 2001: Space Odyssey. The entire point of every single shot is to take in the shot. It's a visual experience. And sometimes it is important for a shot to play out, like you said, made it multiple times. And that's what this beginning thing did allow you to do. It allowed you to create atmosphere. It didn't rush. And that helped the film so much because the audience knew exactly what type of film they were going to be. It set the tone for the film.
And I also like this movie, too, for helping establish Cillian Murphy's career. Because he's in a lot of things to like. He was in Dunkirk. He's in Peaky Blinders. He was Scarecrow in the Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. He's a fantastic actor. And this movie kind of helped kickstart his career.
Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Were there any scenes that stood out to you in this movie?
Stood out. I think the tunnel scene was the one that had the most effect on me because it was so tingeful. Because at that point, you got connected with the characters, and I could have sworn that one of the characters was going to die.
I hate to say it because this scene always breaks me a little bit. Mm. But the scene where Frank turns.
Oh yeah, that one.
Just because it's such a well done scene, the camera the whole time just follows Frank. You see him got to this place where they thought they were going to find salvation. And they got there, and there's no one there. It's abandoned all around. It looks like no one's been there in months. It feels hopeless, and you feel that weight on him, and he just makes this one simple mistake.
Which is believable because everybody's done it, and that's another thing that makes these type of movies so good, or those type of scenes so good.
Well, even in that scene, he establishes it shows his heart. He has his heart to the very end, because a lot of people in that scene would be so filled with anger that they may not even be themselves. But he sees that crow picking at that dead man's skull, and he gets off because it's disrespectful, because for many reasons, and he just looks up and it gets him.
Yeah, I mean, a small drop of blood gets in his eye, and the thing I love about this scene is his daughter comes up and starts asking if he's okay, and the Frank's like, yeah, I'm good, but I just want you to know that I love you, but stay back. And his last action before he turned was to protect his daughter. And that is definitely shows that his heart was in both areas. His heart was in the right place, and it's sad to see that happen. And those type of deaths in films, as much as you hate to see that, have the biggest effects.
Because that was also the theme with Cillian Murphy too. Was that not to allow your situation to change who you are? Mm-hmm. Because he establishes all that, and he's so filled with anger at the end of the movie. Like he kills that dude with his bare hands because of anger. He could have took a gun and shot him, but he wanted to. He wanted to crush his skull.
Which is one thing that bothers me about this. We talk about stupid decisions, and there's one scene where Murphy comes in and a soldier comes in and runs into a gun he has with a bayonet. And he just sticks the gun and just takes it and then releases the gun and runs away. I'm like, take the gun!
But it was poetic because
It is poetic, yes, but still take the gun!
It was poetic. Not everything has to make logical sense, just narrative sense.
I mean, yeah, in this compound with all of these soldiers, you just released zombies. You had to kill someone with your bare hands when you could easily just snuck up on the guy and just shoot him with one shot.
That wasn't the point.
I understand that's not the point. I get it. It just makes more sense.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
But what I do like about that is because he becomes so filled with rage. He pretty much literally becomes one of the monsters.
He wasn't thinking straight.
But he still comes back. Mm-hmm. And that's part of one of the themes of the movie too, is just don't lose who you are.
Yeah, I see that. I agree with that. But man, we talked about this movie to death.
No, we did.
No pun intended.
That was a pun intended.
No, not intended until I realized it intended. Now it's intended. I'm confused.
So this is usual for you?
Yes, it is. But what's not confusing is what we're going to be talking about next week. Because next week we're going to be talking about the new adaptation, is it called?
Adaptation?
Exactly. Couldn't pronounce that word, but of the classic Stephen King's book, It.
Well, I'm excited because I finally got a chance to see this movie the other night. Mm-hmm. I had pre-screening passes that I wasn't able to go to.
Oh.
And I finally saw this movie like a couple weeks after everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I know everybody else has done an episode on it, but I really want to talk about this movie.
Me too.
So we're going to have an episode out discussing it as soon as possible for you guys.
Oh yeah, well, but in the meantime, I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
And you've been listening to the CNC Geekcast.